good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone on this summer meeting of the Graduate Medical Education Board of Indiana. And welcome to everyone. So today we'll have a packed agenda, I think, and some good, lively discussion. Thanks for being here. Lucas, will you call order and see if we have reached quorum today?
Yep, Dr. Jennifer Choi.
Here.
Dr. Steve Becker.
Here.
Dr. Cliff Knight. Here. Dr. Rachel Shockley.
Here.
Angie Zagel. Kevin Gebke.
Present.
Dr. Kevin Gebke, excuse me. Rob McClin.
Here.
Dr. Grace Grice.
Here,
Dr.
Here.
Trisha Hearn.
I am here.
Clarence Quinn.
Here.
And Kaylee Ryan.
Here. Good point. Wonderful. All right. Well, the first thing we have is review of our minutes as normal. So the minutes from the May 2nd meeting were attached in your agenda. So hopefully folks had a chance to review that. Any comments, edits, concerns? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving minutes? The minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. Well, new business today. We have some new members. First of all, we should say we still have an open board member seat, right? From the seat vacated by Dr. Sonderman. And we still have not yet received approval from the governor's office to fill that position. So right now our board is 9 and our 10 slots are just wanted to sort of bring everyone up to speed on that process, still ongoing. And then we'd like to welcome some new members to our board. We have our student advisory members from Marion College of Osteopathic Medicine and the IU School of Medicine. I don't know if Dr. Knight and Dr. Choi would like to do a brief introduction or have them introduce. I mean, obviously they can introduce themselves, but if you want to say anything, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I'm Kaylee Ryan. I'm a third year with the IU School of Medicine. I'm currently completing my core clerkships on the Bloomington campus, which is also where I'm from originally. So grateful to be here today.
Welcome.
I'm McLaren. I'm a third year at Marion. I'm originally from Connecticut, and then I lived in Mississippi, and now I live in Indiana. So I'm just kind of pinballing around the country, but excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we love having medical student members because you are the audience that this work is focused around. And so we'd love to hear your perspectives and welcome you. You know, I think you have 2-year terms that you'll spend with us. So you'll get to see, a lot of different activities over the coming years. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Okay. Well, and then we do have some guests today. I'll wait till maybe the public testimony time just to share or, any comments from our guests. But thank you. I know we have guests in the room and thank you for being here. There may be some online, I'm sure. Right. All right. So now we need to move to choosing our 2026 dates. If you saw those, they were in the agenda. They're kind of following the same cadence. Lucas, do you want to review those dates with the board?
Yeah. Let's see if I can pull up that application. So pretty much, following the same cadence of understanding the last couple of years, reviewing grant reports at the first meeting of the month, last Friday of January, it's January 30th, April 24th. This year was a little bit different. We moved it back 1 year. I think we had scheduling issues.
1 week, yeah.
So last week of April, scoring program development grant applications. Feasibility studies could also be there, but the primary goal is program development grants. July 31st, year from basically now, scoring new residency expansion grants, and then ending the year reviewing grant reports for new residency expansion grants. So no real changes. Kind of stick to the schedule.
Any discussion around these dates or concerns around our calendar? Cadence? All right. If not, we'll also need a motion on this one. Entertain a motion to approve these dates for our 2026 board meetings and the agenda topics that. Thank you. Second. All right, all in favor of approving the calendar dates? Aye.
Aye.
Dates will carry, and then Lucas, if you can put those holds on folks' calendars sooner, then I think we'll just make sure we keep those dates clear far into the future. So thanks for the advanced work on this, because that'll make sure for many of us as possible are freed up to these dates. All right, now I'd like to turn it over to Lucas and Craig to just fill us in on our, particularly Lucas has done this work, so thank you. Lucas, for all your background work on this to show us our budget review and maybe some legislative updates as well.
Great. So the budget, is gonna be pretty brief today, just kind of trying to take a pretty simple high level look at it. So far, the board has approved one program development grant and one feasibility grant so far this year. That was done back in May. So grants are still waiting to be signed, but that's already been kind of taken into consideration. The unencumbered appropriation, the board has, well, started with on July 1st, $6,336,525. The commission recommended, I guess the finance department recommended we reserve $100,000 for reservations, staff expenses, etc. So the board's available unencumbered funding to use at this fiscal year, maybe not today, $6,236,525. So as we talk about the residency expansion grant applications, that's kind of the number that we're going to want to keep in mind. And then, come next year, we will have another bit of $7 million. Any questions about that so far? Okay. So taking that into consideration, this is the full list of applications that we have today. I believe it totals, oh, yeah, right there, $12.3 million, just a bit above. So, just trying to keep in mind kind of the constraints that we're working with. And then just for further context, this is the layout, the spread, kind of for what we're talking about. This is just this round of applications, not taking into consideration previous grants. Okay, so I'll take a second to pause there. Are there any board members that have not received a score sheet so far? Board members that are online, this has been uploaded to the SharePoint site, titled in all caps scores. Great. And then, Madam Chair, that's what I had as far as the budget review. Very,
Okay.
very simple. So
Yeah, I mean, we did this last meeting, we discussed it, that, that our budget or our funding from the state legislature was maintained at the 7 million, where we were previously. And so, as we know, that we're kind of at a little bit of a crossroads today in terms of, having we were in this position a little bit last year, but, and we handled it, kind of in a unique way last year. But I think today, we really are in a place where, because of the success of the board, because of how much work we've done, because of how much people have been attracted to this work and wanted to start residency programs across the state, we have quite a bit more in terms of applications than we have funds available. So, I think it's important for us to sort of reflect back on the hard work we did do to build these scoring rubrics over the years, to recently revise them and make sure that they are as objective as possible and they have, fidelity to the goals that we're trying to achieve, looking to start new programs in underserved areas, places where there's not as many physicians, physician density, the specialty is naive, and the programs that are newer. Scoring construct is made, as well as all the elements of the application that we put in there. So thank you to Lucas for doing the new scoring rubric. It was a little, it's lots of different scoring methodologies for us to do going into that SharePoint site, looking at the various pieces of the application and assigning it, but it was pretty simple to do. And so, I'm sure but I'm sure that took a lot of time to build, so thank you, Lucas, for what you. Yeah. You won't share how long that took, that probably took a minute, so thank you for doing that. Okay, so we are really at the point where today we're going, unless there's any other comments or questions or anything anyone wants to share about what has been. Then we're gonna go through, the grants one by one and, appreciate everyone who was able to get their scores in. And, I know we also had folks, disclose conflicts of interest in scoring the various grants. And so with that, Lucas took that into account when we went through, assigning the scores. And I think for today, since we have 9 board members and there may be several conflicts of interest, I think we'll have to invoke the rule of necessity in order to make sure that we can have enough votes to achieve a quorum to pass these, grant, pass the votes on the various grants that we're gonna assign. Any questions or comments on that or any clarifications?
I'll just walk through the
Yeah, let's go through them one by one.
So, as of the board's recent kind of revisions to the scoring, top score is now 100 grants points, instead of 105. And then, I think a lot of these, the big determining factor was years since establishment of the program. So top score was Marian Health, a very new program, a score of 66.2. Ascension St. Vincent, second highest score, 63.9. Northwest Health Porter, this is a unique application. There was further developed understanding of our grant system. And so we came to an agreement that they misunderstood that they could have submitted an application last year. So they're applying for last year's cohort this year. So that's the difference between that family medicine and the one we'll go over in a second. Third place was scored 51.8. SIGMEC Internal Medicine scored 51.7, coming in at fourth. SIGMEC Psychiatry coming in at fifth with the same score. So I guess both are fourth place, 51.7. Northwest Health Porter Internal Medicine next has 50.4. Parkview OB 47.1. Northwest Health Porter. This is the application for this year. That follows normal guidelines. For family medicine, received a 45.3. Parkview Internal Medicine received a 37.1. Parkview General Surgery received a 36.9. And then SIGMEC Family Medicine received a 36.9. Board members that marked that they would have a serious conflict of interest, that score was not included, was presented here today. Any questions on scores? Okay. Great.
And can you clarify for the
Yeah.
group, Lucas, a little bit on that unique one? So they failed to apply last year or missed the opportunity, I should say.
Correct.
And then this year they're applying, not to go retrospective, but to move forward. Is that,
This figure counts for 3 years of funding. So I guess that's how the board would want to set that up. Staff would recommend against retroactive funding.
right?
But this figure here is requesting 3 years of funding.
Right. So it wouldn't go back to the prior year
Staff would recommend
cohort,
against that.
or they, right?
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, it sounded like from their application, they were asking
Yes,
for a retroactive, but yeah, in my comments, I indicated that I did not support retroactive, but it makes sense for the 2 years for the PGY2 and PGY3 years, but not to retroactively actively go back to the PGY1.
Correct. And that application, each year is $270,000. So
Are we doing 2 years or are we doing 3 years? That confused me potentially. On that, the way you said that, like 2
They're-
years.
they're
versus-
They're asking for 3.
Right, and we're saying 2.
That was what I put in my comments,
That's
my
what you
scoring
interpreted.
comments. I
Is that,
personally
because
don't.
you said,
yeah, so this right here has 810,000 for 3 years. So we went with that path. It'd be 200, what is that? 540,000. That's what it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
thank you.
And that's the one unique application. The rest submitted for the current year.
Oh, just to clarify, would they have an incoming class behind that could start with the 3 years moving forward or?
Yep, that's that second family medicine.
That's what the one down below is.
Correct. So the one at the 45.3 is this year's standard by the rules application.
I see. Okay, that's, so those are sort of linked together, but separate.
Correct. Yeah, they have the same ACG.
And I assume the difference in the score between the two is because now it's a year older, so they lost a few points in that class because it's a year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay. All right. I think that's helps clarify. So so as a board, we can go through each grant and vote on it individually and have discussion if we'd like on any of them. And once we are out of funds, then we will not be able to continue to take votes to approve grant funding. Questions on that?
Madam Chair, I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball. And I'm gonna make a motion that we hold for the minimum of 90 days, making any decision on funding new programs. From perspective of the SIGMEX CEOs and the Hospital Association, I've been working with the governor. I feel like we've got a little bit of inroad on having him listen a little bit to the need for funding. We think there's an opportunity within the next 90 days to get that additional funding that was requested at the time the budget was prepared. And if we could hold on that, I would hate for us to make a decision now that would deny funding for some or create some mechanism whereby we reduce funding for everybody, as opposed to giving us about 90 days to take a look at this and see whether we have the opportunity to be able to change minds, add funding to the GME board, and maybe it would afford us the luxury of being able to cover the majority.
We have a comment from board member Sample as well.
Yeah. Angie?
One thought, that's motions on the table, which I could support. I would remind me of Robert's rules. Perhaps an amendment would be that we approve those contingent upon additional funding so we could move forward with the whole list today.
So Angie, are you proposing an amendment to that motion? I'm trying to think.
Yes.
Motion, you can have discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Second of Rob's motion,
Yes.
and then now discussion. Thank you. And now Angie, go ahead.
Yes. So perhaps we can continue the business. It's a great point, and I hope that we do receive additional funding. I've seen it held this way in other, like with the feds, they'll go ahead and approve contingent upon additional funding received. That could be released immediately then.
Other
Yeah,
discussion?
I'd like to add something here remotely. So, Rob, I have also been working with people who originally helped build this whole thing 8-9 years ago. And I too think there is a reasonable chance we may be able to get additional funding in the next 3 months. So I would really encourage that we try not to make the final decision today, that we wait 3 months, whether we want to, choose to fund dependent on other things or not. I think the initial goal of this project when it started 10 years ago, the initial working group that worked with Governor Pence, worked with the state legislature to build the program. The initial intent was that new programs that started would continue to be funded long-term. This was not supposed to be a 4 or 5 year program. And I'm worried that if we start defunding programs that are up and running, fully successful, that we may lose programs we've already developed that are up and running 5, 6, 7 years to start brand new programs that after starting 3 new programs, it's tough to start new programs. So, I mean, just for me, someone who's been on the ground since day one with this project, I would hate to lose established programs as we're trying to start new ones around the state. I think the state will come forward. I just have to believe the amount of money we're talking about with the return on investment and what has been done. We will find additional funds over the next 3 months. Now, I'm an optimistic person by nature. I understand that. But, you know, I hate to see what we started 10 years ago potentially not achieve what it needed to achieve. And I would just feel really bad if we lost some established programs, you know, and with hospital funding and everything, every year is different. So it's very difficult to be entirely sure you're going to always have enough funding to do your residency. So I think just from a historical perspective, I would really hate not to fund some programs today. I would, and I think we all agree, we would all love to be able to continue funding all the programs. So, you know, I think, you know, I would be, unless there's a reason that we can't wait 2 or 3 months to see if more funding comes in, you know, I would prefer not to actually rank and do everything today. I think we all stay in this trying to get funding for all of it, as long as waiting 2 or 3 months to make those hard decisions we're going to have to make is allowed from our board point of view. So that's just my feeling, having been, I think, the person who was involved from day one in this whole project. And I too, like Rob, meeting with different people, there are people working on things, believing that there should be a way of getting $3 or $4 more million this year.
$4 more million doesn't close the gap though, right? Isn't there?
Yes, the gap is larger. Yeah.
Is that the intent to maintain programs for longer than 3 or 4 years for startup? I thought the intent was to allow programs to get established and become self-sustaining. I don't know that understanding.
That was not the intent originally with the initial legislation, with the initial legislators. If you looked at the initial thing, the goal was to get up to 22 million a year from the state to support very long-term 500 additional spots. We were 500 spots short in the state to get us somewhere in the middle of the country, from 43rd to about 28th. And so the initial goal was for the state to fund 22 million a year long-term, so that the programs were receiving funding that jumped in and built new programs would receive this funding long-term. Now, that doesn't mean our board can't change that, obviously. I mean, we can, you know, the 9 of us right now can modify that. But that was the original intent of the legislation.
And I hope we're able to fulfill that original intent, because I'm from personal experience, I'm telling you, there are hospitals that are rural, like Good Sam and Jasper Memorial, that will end up having to reduce the number. We'll do everything in our power not to shut it down, but we will reduce significantly the number of rotations, the number of slots, and the result of that is going to be a wash. So I hate to just take, you know, the 24 that was at Good Sam, move 12 of them to the other part of the state, and we've got a net zero game. The whole idea behind this, and that's what we're really working with the government on. The whole idea behind this was to grow the number of slots in Indiana, keep these residents here. He has made that comment multiple times in large groups, talking about the desire to keep more residents in the state of Indiana with with 2 great medical schools. I hate to see that brain drain leave the state of Indiana. He's at least saying the right things. If you could just give us a little more time to twist an arm, maybe we have a chance.
Dr. Knight, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been accused many times of being pathologically optimistic. Last fall at this time, or as we were going into it, I was very optimistic that we had the data and we could convince, and the individual legislators that I met with to a person were all very, yeah, this makes sense. We hate to lose momentum, that sort of. Help me understand the mechanism that you all are engaging in that would have additional, where would that money come from? Because then in the spring, the tenor changed because of the the recognition that there was a gap in what was in the state budget and then everybody's answer when we talked about, gosh, we really wanted to get 14, the answer was, you're lucky you got 7. So tell me, if you would, just share a little behind the curtain where you think that money would come from and that sort of thing. And would it be helpful for any of us to get engaged in any discussions with anyone else besides who you're already talking to?
I think every bit of engagement would be great. And I think going back over the trip on Bach ROI again and sharing that directly with as many people as you can would be great. All I will tell you is that from the governor's discussions with us a week and a half ago, he said, doesn't seem to make any sense not to provide that additional money. Now, he didn't tell me whether it's coming out of his, out of the cushions of his couch or if it's coming out of a different fund somewhere, but he certainly has said the right things. And so we're going to work with them to try to ensure that we get at a minimum of 3 million. You're right. It will not cover everything, but it sure will come a lot closer and maybe sustain us over the course of the next couple of years to be able to educate people greater on how important it is to keep our residents in the state of Indiana once they graduated out.
And the people I've dealt with were some people from 10 years ago that were actually instrumental in getting this legislation passed, some are still in the legislative body and some have moved on, but are working behind the scenes. So, that's all I can say.
Well, thank you for those insights. I mean, I agree that it's 100% the intention of this entire board that if we had sufficient funds, we would support all of the programs and continue with both the new ones and the ongoing support of the existing ones that have been built under this this board and the funding that we've had available. But, so we're kind of at this crossroads here today, in terms of where the motion is. So we had a motion, from Rob to, basically table the votes until 90 days from now at our next board meeting. And then Angie, you, amended that with a motion saying, vote for as many as, run through the list and vote them and, contingent on funds available. Is that correct?
That is correct. That would probably still require a ranking, if we don't get the full 6 million, we'd still have to rank the contingent ones. I'm curious though, if is there any reason not, for the residency programs, is there a reason for us to proceed today, or what would a 90-day delay impact be on, others? Just for as a newer board member, I'm curious.
I think we have representatives from almost each of the systems on the call. So if anyone would like to make a comment, please feel free.
I would only speak for Rob. You want to handle SIGMEC, but from SIGMEC's point of view, we are, 90 days would not matter. In other words, delayed getting any funding, depending which programs would get funding. Rob, do you want to, from a CEO perspective? I'm speaking from the SIGMEC board perspective.
Care about money. No, I would agree. I think 90 days, I would far rather be able to make an educated decision based upon some validated data and either an affirmation from the governor's office, one way or another, that the funding will be there before we make a decision on who's in, who's out. Because selfishly, what I will tell you based upon the information that I'm hearing from Dr. Becker and others is that if the concept originally for this GME board was to not only sustain existing, but grow new, then my vote would be to sustain existing. And I think because there's only enough money not even quite enough money for the existing programs, correct? Is there enough to support the existing programs?
Once the program development grants that are in motion right now are completed, then not quite enough. That's about 1.5 to 2 years away.
So I would rather wait and try as opposed to my vote would be only new programs are held. existing programs sustained until the additional funding comes. I'm bothered by the concept that the legislation would dictate to us how to distribute monies that they underfunded, when they know what the programs are intended to do. And the thought of having to vote on something that would ultimately result in fewer or a wash in number of residency programs to hurt some of the smaller programs, I'll vote nay to that. So. But I'm good with holding for 90 days.
And if we look
Yeah.
at the scoring that was just put up, programs who may get funding for 1 or 2 years, all of a sudden, like 3 years from now, may be bounced back, and programs that got funding before may come back in and get funding. So, when you start taking the 25 points away for the 5 years. A program up near the top right now, like Marion Health, might lose 25 points in the future. And now all of a sudden they're below the SIGMEC programs, so I just really want to try. I know we all want to try to get that. If I didn't feel there was any hope, then I would not be supporting this. But we're going to be in an awkward position 3 years from now that programs that, like Marion, they'll be down below other ones. And all of a sudden, they may not even get 4 or 5 years of support.
Right. So from the Marion perspective, what I would tell you is, for us, the first 3 or 4 years are exactly what we need, because the initial investment on faculty, resources, and capital investments to set up the program isn't equal by the number of patients we're seeing. So it's not until we get the full 18, or when we've done our budget, once we have the full 18, we're going to break even, if not be a little bit ahead. So for a program our size, our plan is 3 or 4 years of this is enough to get us over the hump and become self-sufficient. The problem is, beginning when you only have 6 and then 12, the total volume that you're seeing doesn't match the required resources to actually make that at least break even.
Thank you. And were you gonna share?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Representative for Marion kind of said. For St. Vincent, Evansville, getting to a point of self-sustainability after the first couple of years is ultimately the goal, just knowing the unpredictability of funding anyway. And then I would say, as far as the 90 days, that's fine with us as well, kind of similar to what Dr. Becker and Rob were saying. As far as, we already have the residents, it's not going to put a financial strain on cash flows or anything like that if we wait another 90 days.
So the next board meeting. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think for just looking back at recently I looked back at the language in the legislative bill, and it did however it's described in the code. And it does say that the funds were intended for programs that don't yet have CMS funding and for the startup of them. The word startup is in there. Now, I know, Steve, you are correct, and lots of discussions were happening, and what's actually, discussions were happening at the same time there was the code was written. But when you look at the language, those specific words are used about startup and focusing on programs that don't have CMS funds. So, in an optimal world, we would be able to serve both audiences. There's no doubt about that. But we have been preparing for years as a board for this sort of situation, that we may be at a crossroads where we do not have enough funds, and we are going to have to make some choices. And that may still happen. Obviously, that could still happen in the next 90, even best case scenario. Sounds like if you get 3 million, we still have we're still at a crossroads, maybe not as big of a crossroads, but we're still at a crossroads, and this is dependent on ongoing increases in funding in the legislature, which may or may not be feasible. To sort of, so it's helpful to hear from programs that are sharing that, that expectation that, it'd just be a startup, that could be okay. But other systems may feel that, they need the ongoing support, We've got a mix of perspectives, it sounds like. Angie, are you raising your hand? I want to make sure I'm paying attention to the,
Yes, Madam
Everyone.
Chair, I'd like to rescind or request to withdraw my amendment motion to simplify the vote. So after hearing everything, and also I feel like it's going to be a better argument to the governor's office if we can state very clearly like the difficulty this presents us and the number of programs that we will have to not fund. So hopefully that it will be better, I think, if we hold off for the advocacy efforts. And let's ask for the full 6 million and get clarification of what they really want us to prioritize in the future. This is a good moment for advocacy.
thank you for that. Okay, so, yeah, your amendment to the motion had not had a second, so we're back to Rob McLean's original motion to hold the vote for today for 90 days pending discussion with the governor's office to obtain more additional funding for this, for these purposes. And there was a second to that motion that stays. And so we're in discussion still before we vote. Go ahead, Dr. Shockley.
So if we did do that, what could we do today? What further business could we do if we did that stipulation or something?
The 90-day piece. I think we would hold on all this business. Sure. Well,
My question
Or
for
should
staff
we do
is
some
there,
work?
would it be helpful, useful for us as a board to pass a motion to petition the governor's office for additional funds? Having something official like that, is that helpful or not? And is there even an avenue for that, I guess, is my question. Because I think if the board feels strongly, it would be nice to go on record and say that we're officially requesting an additional 6 million or whatever the delta is between what we've agreed we want to be able to distribute. I just don't know the mechanism.
Yeah.
That.
I appreciate the question. I love to dialogue with the board on that. Dr. Guy, it sounds like there's already multiple, I think, channels of communication that are ongoing. So,
But I think the governor pointed forward would be a great starting. I mean, I think that would get his attention as well as there's the opportunity to be able to seek some kind of
I would hope that would have
official request.
additional public commitment by the board to trying to seek this additional funding. So it doesn't feel like there's just individual members of the board that are trying to do
Yeah.
this outside of
Right.
sort of normal mechanics. But I know it's
What-
not, I know this is typical. I recognize that as well.
What if we put this in the motion in that we have a motion to delay the vote on this for 90 days to try to seek the additional $6 million needed to continue funding all current and new programs. So it's not a separate, that we all support going to get the 6 million, but the reason that we are delaying any vote is because we don't want to eliminate funding for some programs here. And potentially run the risk of some programs having to either close or downsize after they've been up and running 5 or 6 years. So I think we could get to the same goal in that the board has spoken with this motion and asking that we want to get an additional, whatever the delta is that Lucas has calculated.
Yep. So it should be about 6.1 million. It's called 6.2 to be safe. That's what's better.
So are you looking for a
Well, no, I'm
motion, or do you think
surface.
those should be two separate motions? What's that? Was that an amendment, Steve? Did you?
Yeah, you wanted to make
I
it
don't know
amend-
I don't know, Trish, do you think that would,
we could, yeah, continue discussion. Go ahead, Steve. Keep
I
going.
just wondered if we modified the motion, whether it would be effective enough for both goals that we're asking. One is to let everyone know this is why we delayed 90 days. And that, because we want to really try to find the other 6.2 million.
Yeah. Great. Do you have a comment, Dr. Shockley?
What's the harm in having two separate motions? Because it seems like two pretty different things.
Okay.
I prefer two separate motions. It kind of gets muddied a little bit.
It's a little muddy.
And other discussion? I want to make sure we're hearing from all voices. This is a complex meeting, so we want to make sure we hear from all. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to delay the, that's been seconded, to delay the, vote today on these grants applications, delay it for 90 days. I have a motion and second, we've had some discussion, and, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of delaying the votes for today for 90 days, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
And I'll make the motion, and then the follow-up motion to that, that the board officially request a governor consider additional funding of $6.2 million in order to be able to meet the requests that we've received.
Second. Second, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, this is tough stuff we are faced with as a board. It really is. So, I have great confidence in this board, though. I knew that, everyone's motivated by the right thing here. And we want to do the best we can for all of these programs and make sure that, if ideally we, at our next meeting, we have some good news to report and we can at least extend, if not fulfill, the list that we're faced with today, the list of programs that all their needs. So thank you for the thoughtful discussion. All right. So any follow-up or anything that you need, like those of you who are working on this, I know Dr. Knight just asked how we can engage, but please, keep us apprised of what progress, or if we need to, anyone needs to be pulled in to help advocate for. If any of us are willing to assist.
See, the Dr. Knight's motion, would you guys pull something together to let us take a look at, approve as far as the official request to the governor? And then we'll collaborate with you as much as we can so that we're not stepping on each other's toes as far as the request and the work. I think again, sharing the trip unbox stuff, I think maybe even share, I don't know if this is, I think this is public, but sharing this information with the governor's office too, to say, procedurally, we're gonna have to make decisions based upon the score. Because I'm assuming that's what the procedural vote would be right now, right? It would be, if I've got 6 million, if I've got 10 million, if I've got 12. I'm voting from number one score until I run out of money, right? So it would be nice to be able to share that with the governor's office to explain these people below a certain number are not going to get voted in. You're going to lose. The only thing I would ask on this, if you could give me the number of slots again, I know it's in the application, but it'd be helpful to have it on this sheet. Yeah. And then I think we can express, here's the number of slots we're voting no on. You're losing these resident slots in the state of Indiana because of X million dollars a year. So really worth it.
Or you have the risk, I guess. I mean, it's a risk, right? It's not for certain these programs will close.
Right.
But it's a risk.
And to add to the list on here, I can guarantee you we have 4 additional programs, IU sponsored programs, but regionally that are going to be statewide important, including 2 in Bloomington that'll come online next summer that are going to be Bloomington, Paoli, Bedford. So they are going to serve huge need in the state. One in Gary and another psychiatry program as well that's a few years off. So Gary may be as early as next summer as well. So they're IU sponsored, but not all IU health facilities. And they also would benefit. Just gonna put it out there. They're not yet scored, not yet asking for money, but as we're thinking about our dollar signs.
Well, and as we think ahead to next April's meeting, right, because that would be within this funding biennium, right, this year, then next, in the past, in April, we voted to sort of reach forward to the July funds. But then if those come due, you know, we're also, I mean, there may be even additional. We may not, for the, yeah, the program development ones, and feasibility, but particularly the new program development are the largest dollar amounts, 500,000. And so if those come up in next April, we will be out of funds, even if we get the delta. So it might be useful to know any programs that have that intention for next April, because that could be factored into the ask. I mean, in an optimal situation, right? Yeah, because then if the delta we're asking for is 6.1, but then we know 3, 8 new, yeah, exactly, 8 million would be the ask. We may not get it, but it would be realistic to ask for that amount. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if it would also be helpful in the information to take to the governor and to the legislature to show them what the investment has already been in the programs. Because we want to show the value, and especially if it's a threat to the existence of the current programs. They've already invested quite a bit. I don't think they want that money to be waste.
Yep. Great, thank you. Okay, so, table our new business, and so I think if there is any other discussion from the board members, around this topic.
If I could just, I'm still thinking about Steve's comments, and one of the things that Steve said was the people who were involved 10 years ago are still around, which is reassuring. It is going to take some advocacy if we are going to recognize this carry forward and annual additional investment to get to the 22 million. It sounds like we have a plan to address this with the governor for the coming year, but hopefully we can also figure out a way that the governor and other legislators recognize that this is an increasing investment year over year. And if we're going to get to the point of supporting 500 positions in perpetuity, it's going to be 22 million at the 44,000, whatever that escalating number is with the cost that we're all well aware of. So I'm just trying to figure out how we tie that messaging together with the message that is going to the governor from this council.
And maybe build in, I think, Zach, right? Maybe we build in a calendar. Hey, this is the 5-year view. This is where we believe we need to be by 2030. And share with them, here are the costs, here are the number of slots that we're looking to increase. I think it's right. I think there's no reason to surprise them. We've done it before, they've said no. So, you know, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to surprise anybody, we ought to be honest about what we're expecting.
So, really quickly, from a staff perspective, just coordinating going forward, we look forward to connecting with several of the board members who have been engaged recently in advocacy efforts. I just want to point back to, this past legislative session. We've discussed this before, the difficult economic landscape in which the state is in this biennium, and do want to point out, I think that there is large and growing recognition of the strong return on investment that this board has produced through the programs that it's funding. And I think that's indicative of the fact that, most programs across state government were cut at least 5%, some much more. While the increase the board pursued did not materialize, funding stayed flat. And I think in the environment that we now find ourselves in, we saw that as a win given those circumstances. So, we had a lot of data that we put together that, I've heard several individuals kind of bring up those different points. We're happy to, piece that together again. And I think coordinate on some of those conversations that have been happening so far, in charting that thing forward for the motion that the board just approved.
Love advocates.
Hey, Trish, when,
Yes.
when you looked at the initial legislation, it seems from my recollection, but it's been a while, that the initial funding was 3 million for the first 2 years. But they had in that initial bill, with House Ways and Means and that, it said with the goal of increasing up to 22 million, they had a timeline of doing that in there, but it was not guaranteed. Because I know there was a big discussion at that time about, can you lock in and guarantee that money? And they said, no, we can't. But, we can sort of say this is the plan. So I would say look back and see if there is anything in any of that initial legislation where they talk about the goal of getting to 22 million.
Okay, we'll look back. I know when,
We can share that with the board, Dr. Becker. That was in the original fiscal note that was attached to the bill. So, like many, it considers the ramp up period. So that initial funding was much smaller to get things up and running. And then that, was kind of a scaffolded approach over time. So we'll be glad to share that link.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And, the climate is different. I mean, we've had to, the board has had to adjust as the climate has adjusted too, because things are different than they were 10 years ago. But I think optimally we'd be doing both, but certainly this constant tension over that we face as a board around building new versus maintaining existing. And it's a challenge in the environment.
And the turnover in the legislature makes it hard to harken back to 10 years ago and say, well, this was the intent, because a lot of that institutional memory has left. So Steve, I'm glad you're reaching out to some of the people who are involved initially so they can validate to the current legislators what the thinking was on that. Because all the legislators I've talked to weren't around 10 years ago that are now there. They go, oh, I never heard that was what, so I think that wasn't perpetuated. That thought wasn't perpetuated institutionally.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, this was a good discussion. I think we have I'm hopeful. We will remain hopeful, but also I think prepared that if, we don't meet, if we aren't able to obtain those funds or sufficient funds that we are able to act at the next meeting. So we can move forward, but sort of, look forward to all the conversations and engagement that we can, and all the advocacy we can perform as board members to help move this forward. So, any other discussion items for today? Yeah, Dr. Chocolate.
So at the next meeting, we'll do grade report, expansion grade report reviews, plus we'll do the agenda for today.
Correct. Yeah.
As a newer board member, this is a bit off topic. I was wondering if there's someone that I just got a hold of the trip from Bot report, but I didn't know if there was any executive summary. I understand that it was sort of an overview of what Indiana needs, but I also didn't know if that report has sort of a resources, kind of region by region, so that new residency programs were strategically placed statewide and things like that. I think one of the things that I struggle with just kind of watching is everybody's trying to figure out, well, can I put an OB residency here? Can I put a whatever residency there? And I don't know that we're the same state medically that we were 10 years ago. Even that short of time frame, I feel like things have shifted a good bit. And from an overall statewide strategy perspective and how we're starting programs, I'm not sure if there should be a different statewide strategy. Like, I realize we are a funding board, but also thinking about how we plan, what the needs are. I wonder if that may be the lens that we take as we start to run out of money, that we actually need to figure out our strategy that way.
What I've seen with the Trip Umbach, and it predates me, I don't think he got that specific. Looking at all the different combinations, if the board had decided to vote today, the highest combination the board could have done, there would have been about $75,000 remaining. So, you know, that is something to consider if the board has things that they would like to look at more specifically moving forward. Well, I guess essentially putting out another RFP for a study, perhaps not Mitchell Bummer, but
Yeah, we could ask for some sort of analysis of the different specialties, different regions, maybe from the Bowen, you know, or well, the Bowen Center would likely be an applicant, but if we could put out an RFP, we can make it open. And see what, you know, ask for a report looking into those particular categories or features that you're describing. So that is an opportunity. We had the original trip up work when the board originated, and then we had a follow-up study maybe 4 years ago around the economic impact from trip up that was a little more smaller in scope than just helping us articulate the value of these funds and return for the state of Indiana, which was, you know, like basically $1 invested returns 8. I think over time goes up to returning $12 for the state. That was the bottom line of that study. But that is an opportunity that I think we would have to make as Lucas shared, doing RFP to ask for that type of more granular data.
It's just one of those thoughts that we've had as we're kind of thinking about, as we're starting programs at Bloomington, trying to figure out how do we maximize CAP and what resources do we have, and looking around, and, you know, there are not that many metropolitan areas in Indiana where you can have a program outside of, you know, even some primary care is really hard to do internal medicine. You don't have rheumatology, you don't have geriatrics, you don't have some other things. And so you can't, there are just a lot of things you can't do, but we need to try to figure out how to cobble some things together. And cobble is not the right word, but how do you put it together in a way that's meaningful? Because we do have the resources, they're just, oh, let's figure out how maybe we need to think about it differently, and maybe that's just a separate group, and how do we think about that across institutions in a way that's different?
a separate note, as we've kind of talked about scoring, the Robert Wood Foundation is what, a fair amount of the scoring has used. I've seen on their website that they have stopped receiving some amount of funding in the years to come. So if we're looking at those kinds of avenues, that might be something to consider if the board would want to refresh whatever source that is for the two, the ranking of county and position to foundation. Something to consider.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, maybe any other comments on what Dr. Choi shared?
I think that concept makes good sense to try and step back a bit and come up with a strategy which then helps drive prioritization.
Yeah.
Because it feels like prioritization of where money goes is going to continue to be an issue at some point. So I think it'd be great to have additional data to make sure that what we're prioritizing makes sense for the state.
Yeah. I think he shared that in our recent presentation with us, but that would be an example. If the votes that are applying to that RFP, that they could drill down a little bit on the data you're describing. So
that would be helpful for us to carry out the business at hand.
Right. And maybe
to give guidance.
Yeah, to give guidance limited with, particularly in a resource limited environment. Yeah, I think which is what we're trying to be good stewards of the funding, and that data would be helpful. So Lucas and Greg, would we direct, do I need a motion from the board, or can you draft up some sort of initial RFP for us to react to?
Yeah, I think we could draft an RFP and the board would have to approve that it's published. I've been watching videos past if the board wanted to make a decision that, once an RFP is created and if the applicant falls below a certain financial threshold, the board chair can authorize. So there are a couple things we could do, but we can definitely start
drafting an RFP, and then we could react to that as a motion next time, and, you know, but I think looking at specialty, density, the needs in the state, existing programs, where the gaps are by specialty, and we may have specialties that we're not, you know, we've got our list of what, right, 8 specialties or whatever we have, but there may be specialties that we would consider based on the data that we would gather, so. Yeah, any other, thoughts, Greg?
The only other thought from a staff perspective, so we, there was the motion that was just made and voted upon to delay
Yes.
voting on the expansion grants. There's, conversations with the governor's office about additional funding. With any RFP, depending on the scope, cost will vary, but that's just another, element that I would flag. For the board moving forward, that there will be a cost associated.
Yes.
With that project.
Unlikely, like if today we had voted, there was probably gonna be a little bit of like leftover funds that, like what we're gonna have left if we voted them on.
71,000.
Yeah, so there may be a way to have a small RFP with those remaining funds if that gets out, so. We have to consider that in our costs. That would be a pretty tiny cost in the scheme of the budget we're working towards, especially presuming if we get some additional funding. But this is a good discussion, and I think could help us make better decisions. So thanks for the suggestion. All right, well, I would like to take a moment and just let everyone know. Greg, do you want to share some news with the board that you have some good news for Greg? Maybe some sadder news for those of us on the board who have worked with Greg over the years and really have appreciated his guidance. But yeah, if you want to share a little bit.
I would. Thank you, Dr. Hearn, for that recognition. So this will be my last GMed meeting, and my last day of the commission is actually next Friday, August 1st. So I've taken a position outside of state government. Ironically, my new employer is just literally right next to this room. So I'm going to be joining the Institute for Quality Education here in August, and will be serving as their executive director for policy and government affairs. So really excited for the opportunity. It is bittersweet, as I've served at the commission for 9 years in state government. It's all been with the same agency, and really passionate about the work that we do, and have done a lot of different roles, responsibilities, and projects there. And so GMed is actually something that happened fairly recently before Lucas came on board. And I will say I knew it existed. I had a surface level understanding of what the board did, but have learned that it does really good work. And there are a lot of challenges in all sectors, including healthcare. And I think the work that you are doing and the funding that you're providing to support and growing, and sustaining our physician workforce is incredibly important. So I appreciate the board for their work, and meetings, conversations, phone calls, a lot of questions that I've had, and Lucas has done just a phenomenal job since coming on board. So looking forward to staying engaged and continuing to hear about his successes and work that you all do. So thank you.
And I just want to, it's been a huge assistance to me in my role as board chair. He has provided great insight, a calming presence, able to sort of guide difficult scenarios with great calmness and great perspective. And it's been fun to work together over the years. And I think we've built a nice relationship, and I'll be sad to see you go, but really excited for your future and the imprint that you've made on this board. So thank you. So best wishes, and we'll find you next door.
Not going far.
You still validate our parking.
See what I can do.
All right, and then, so we have some public guests. I mean, it's time for we'll move to our public testimony. I know that we have our guests from Evansville, Ascension, Evansville, and I have a student with me that's working, a Marion medical student, first year medical student, Kirsten Johnson, who's been with me this summer over at my day job at Community Health Network. And so welcome to you all. There may be some other public members online. If anyone wants to share anything for public testimony, we'd be open to that.
Dr. Hearn, I would just say, Brooke Mullen with the Health Workforce Council of the Department of Health. The strategies of this board align very closely with what our goals are into increasing the physician pipeline in Indiana. I've discussed this with Lucas. We'd be happy to support you financially in working with an RFP or something like that to get additional information.
Oh, what's that? Yeah, that would be fantastic.
You don't have an extra 6 minutes.
But I have a little bit extra maybe that we can work with.
That would be fantastic. That's lovely.
If someone wants, if any businesses maybe that are out there listening just wants to give that money, I'm sure the GME board would be able to accept that.
That is, yes, we would love.
Dr. Hearn, I'm Dr. Heidi Dunaway, Chief Medical Officer for the South Region for Central St. Vincent. I just want to thank the board for the great work. I know you all put a lot of time into this, and this is really critical to be doing so. And this has been such a pleasant meeting to sit through after being in the medical licensing board meeting all day yesterday. So, I just want to thank all of you though for your extra efforts, because I think this really is critical for our state, for our patients, and for all of our own families to make sure we've got access to healthcare meetings. Thank you.
Those comments. All right, I'll pause for a minute, see if anyone online has anything. Room. All right, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting today.
Okay.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you all. And we will see you in 3 months and hopefully have some exciting updates at that time. Yeah, fingers crossed.